Even men at the top of their game find themselves wanting more from life. Whether it's more meaning, unshakable confidence, a bigger impact, more money, deeper love, a hotter sex life, or a powerful legacy. Find out how good your life can be on this episode of Man Alive. Also, as I've supported men in their love and work lives for 15 years now, many men ask for the right words to say to be more successful, attractive, and desirable. But I found it's not so simple as giving scripts or lines because every man is different. So giving words or scripts would be like giving a tall, thin man a shorter, wider man's pants, or vice versa. The words have to make sense for you and your personality, and there's so much happening beneath the surface that people are responding to. If you're interested in how to become a better lover and leader in your own unique way, go to shanajamescoaching.com/quiz, or you can text ALIVE to 44144. It only takes a couple minutes and you'll start to get an idea of how you can be both more respected and desired. After you fill it out, we can schedule a time to review your quiz and talk about your specific challenges and desires. So again, go to either shanajamescoaching.com/quiz or text ALIVE to 44144. That's ALIVE to 44144. Enjoy this episode of Man Alive. Hello and welcome to this episode of Man Alive. I'm excited to be here today. I'm your host, Shana James, and I'm here with Robert Glover, who I imagine many of you listening have heard before, have read No More Mr. Nice Guy. Maybe you've read Dating Essentials for Men. I'm excited to have a conversation about the Dating Essentials for Men book. And, not only how they apply. So if you're listening and you're in a relationship, not just single, right? This applies too, because we're kind of, if you think about it, we're kind of dating each other forever.
I hope so.
Right? We hope so. Otherwise the spark fades and things die and fizzle and, it's not as fun anymore.
Yeah. Well, I've been a marriage therapist for over 30 years. And so I even have a podcast series where I take dating principles and apply them to marriage.
I love it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So important. So
glad to be here again with you, Shana.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here with you as well. And like I said, before we hopped on there, I have my list of everything that I commented on while I was listening to your book. So, where do you want to start? Like, what's most exciting to you about this information? Because I know you have different pieces. You work more with No More Mr. Nice Guy and other workshops, but for the dating piece, what excites you the most about it?
Okay, let's start with me. That's a good place to start.
Yeah.
And it's a good place to start because I started where a lot of guys start out. Most of us are not good with women. In fact, one of the things I said, dating is not in our human DNA.
Yeah. And it's not really taught or learned very much.
No, because, and it's only existed in human experience for maybe 80 years, 90 years.
Wow, that's interesting.
If you think about it, our grandparents, you met somebody that lived on the farm next door, or somebody you went to church with,
or your cousin.
I was going to say you maybe dated your sister's, friend, and married your sister's friend. Yeah.
Hopefully not.
Or her cousin.
Yeah.
And so this idea of dating, has not been around. I mean, a lot of cultures, it still isn't. A lot of cultures still have arranged marriages. You don't have to date.
Yeah.
Friends and family hook you up. And so what happens, because it's not in our DNA and it's not been in our human history for long, and it's really now the only way you get access to female companionship, sexual access, marriage, being able to have kids, is like the gateway to get to those things that are so valuable to all of us as humans.
Yeah.
But none of us have the directions or the keys to do it.
Yeah.
So that's why I say starting with me. And what I'll say is that for so many men that I work with, and this is true for me, we feel inadequate because we don't know how to date. We feel inadequate because we don't know how to talk with women in such a way that might lead things forward or might.
I loved your example too, like on a surfboard, when you were learning how to surf, you were like, I wiped out, dozens of times. It didn't mean I was a failure. It didn't mean there was something wrong with me. Right. It's just,
I'm just learning how to surf. And I swallowed a lot of water in the process. So I want to tell people listening that if relationships don't come easy for you, if talking to women, if getting out of your comfort zone, whether you're single or married, you're normal.
Yeah.
Even pair bonded, monogamous, lifelong relationships is
They're
not in
not
our
easy.
that's not in our human DNA either. But
No.
that's the model that's been handed to us, and we all think it should work. So
Right.
where I was at, I I was never a good dater. Women intimidated me. I used what I called nice guy seduction. I
Yeah.
would, when I was in high school or college, I would find a way to, sit next to a woman in class, and I'd usually pick a woman that wasn't too good looking or not too bad looking. The too good looking was intimidating.
Yeah.
Too bad looking, well, so I'd sit next to her and maybe try to impress her by like knowing answers and stuff. And
Yeah.
maybe, would talk to her some, maybe hang out, maybe offer to do something for her. And I thought if I just went really slow, hid my sexual agenda, or not even have a sexual agenda, that's better, right?
Oh, right. Hid it, you said. Like, yeah.
I would hide it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, no. I'm being a nice guy. I'm not like those jerks that only want to have sex. I've heard you complain about those guys, the ones that only want one thing.
Yeah.
I'm not them. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then with this, okay, I'll hide my sexual agenda, and then maybe you'll want to have sex with me because I'm a good guy. So that's what I would do. And then if I did get a girlfriend, I stayed way too long with them because I didn't know how to go get another one.
Right.
And so why leave if I'm not? So after 25 years of marriage to two women, as I've said, probably neither of them I should have gone on more than 3 dates with.
Right.
But
then
because of my patterns, I'm out there in my late 40s in the dating world, and I at least had worked on at that time a lot of my nice guy issues, so I wasn't such an approval seeking kind of person.
Yeah.
But I didn't know where to start, and luckily, a lot of my clients gave me like books and recordings and DVDs, and I'm a learner, I'm a researcher, I'm a scientist, so I just started going out and just seeing what worked, and out of that, I started getting phone numbers and dates and sex, and my clients are going, Robert, whatever you're doing is working. Teach us. And so that's where I started. So I guess just what I want to say starting out.
Yeah.
If you've struggled, for you men listening to this, if you've struggled at any point of the whole, how do I talk to a woman, and all the way now that I'm married to her, how do we keep having sex together? You're normal. You're normal.
Yes.
And luckily, there's a lot of good information, a lot of bad information out there.
Yeah, but there's a lot of good. I mean, one of the themes that I really appreciated about your book was that you don't need to seduce a woman. And actually, if you try to seduce a woman, you end up at some point later realizing like, we don't even know each other, or, who is this person? And that way of just, we're out here to get to know each other,
Yeah. I tell men the men have a hard time hearing a lot of what I teach. There's a lot of it's counterintuitive, the way men go about things. But I'd say the first 3 years of dating, the first 3 years of dating is the whole purpose of that 3 years is to get to know the person. What is her nature? Wow. Think about this.
It actually makes sense to me now, being older and being divorced myself. Being older, it takes a while to get to know someone.
And I think every long-term relationship I've had, or the ones that didn't go much past 3 years, at about the 2.5-year mark, you find out something about this person that you didn't see coming, and you go, whoa, that's important. They either like start doing certain behaviors, or they share you an attitude or a life philosophy, and you go, I didn't know that about you.
Yeah.
So most of us probably aren't going to spend 3 years checking out a person's nature, but I would say maybe wait 3 years before you move in with somebody or before you marry them.
Yeah.
But so here's the thing. I tell guys, dating is not meant to get a woman to like you or to get her naked with you.
Yes.
It is to find out her nature and how does she fit into your great life. So the little key there is not trying to get a woman to do anything.
Right.
That's the whole basis of #MeToo is all the men that have been trying to get women to do this thing because it's their agenda. And it's invasive, it's intrusive to women. And I go back to a phrase I heard David Data say in a workshop 15 years ago. He said, choose a woman who chooses you. And really all of Dating Essentials for Men is built around that concept.
Right, because you were saying, right, it's like you're testing for interest. You want to check out to see if a woman's interested, and if not, move on.
Move on, because if she hasn't chosen you, and this applies to married men as well, because I've been there, a lot of married men are there, they're still trying to get a woman to choose them who's not choosing them. She hasn't chosen them since the second kid was born, and they're still trying to get her to choose them. That's a fool's errand. It's much easier if you spend your time with a woman who already thinks you're amazing, that you don't have to seduce her, you don't have to impress her, you don't have to buy her things, you don't have to help her sister move or make her car payments for her. She just likes you how you are. That's easy.
Well, and this goes back to your, the toxic shame and self-limiting beliefs, that if you don't actually believe you're likable as who you are, then this sets up this whole foundation where, okay, now I think I have to do something to get her to like me, to seduce her. I've got to say the right thing, do the right thing, touch the right way. Right. And so I really love too that your book goes back into, all right, how do you undo those self-limiting beliefs, and how do you start seeing yourself in a new way?
Yeah. And I've been saying for years that conscious dating and conscious relationships are the most powerful way I know to clear out our old baggage.
Yes.
And I'll give the example. Think about it. What is dating? The way I put it, dating is basically standing naked in front of every woman in the world saying, in spite of all my visible flaws and all the ones you haven't seen yet, do you find me interesting enough to talk to me?
Right.
Give me a phone number, go on a date with me, get naked with me, maybe marry me and have my kids someday. That's dating. That's dating. It is a vulnerable process.
It is
and most people go about it trying to hide their vulnerabilities, which actually works against you. But again, if you are responding to an energetic invitation that a woman is already offering up to you and walking through that open door, that is so much easier, because now we don't have to have a clever line. Now we don't have to try to, trick them into taking their clothes off. They already think we're cool and interesting and are probably already thinking about taking their clothes off. That's just so much easier.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
one of the things you talked about was confidence. And, as you say that, I think, okay, well, some of the men I've worked with, there is that lack of confidence or that lack of belief in themselves. And I appreciated you had a section on, how, in a way, how to appear confident, right? Or there's a little bit of a fake it till you make it, but there's also a sense of, as you start to recognize your own capacity, I would say, to lead and take charge and not have to be the nice one who's making up for all those other assholes, like you said before. But I think some of those things do become more natural expression, right? You're not trying to put on a mask or a facade. And I'm curious how you navigate that one.
Well, that's a good one. Again, this is the beauty of conscious dating. It does help us clean out a lot of old baggage and a lot of misperceptions about ourselves, the world, women, sex. Let's just clean out a lot of shame. Now it's work, but I think it's work worth doing. And if we're going to date anyway, we might as well do the deep work along with it. So I had a thought of where to take that, and it slipped my mind for a second. So how do we do this? Okay.
That's you. Hold on. I have your audio book as I'm looking at the.
I came on the audiobook. Well, just edit that out or leave it. It doesn't matter. Hey, we all make mistakes, right?
We all make mistakes, right? That's part of it. We don't have to be perfect.
Exactly. So here is so where I start with men. And again, I say a lot of things to men, and they always go, "Yeah, but," because even the guys right now that are saying, I said, choose a woman who chooses you. They're all sitting there thinking, but what if they're all fat or old, or, what if they're not pretty? What if they're not, so.
Yeah. What do you say to that?
What do I say to that? I say that is number one, your self-limiting beliefs. And number two, it probably means you're addicted into this myth of beauty that's in our culture, that having a hot woman, a beautiful woman somehow makes your life better, or that hot women are somehow better in bed. It's all mythology. But men, and I've worked with men that basically say, well, if I can't date a 10, I'm not going to date at all. And I'll go, that's like saying, if I can't drive a Bentley, I'm not going to drive.
I'm not going to drive at all.
We can start out driving a Honda Civic. It's okay. And I tell guys, start out driving Honda Civics. You can work your way up, But and this is such a key part of it that, like I said, since this isn't part of our DNA or what's wired into us, it does require practice.
Yeah.
And I say we're bouncing around, but the part I want to bring up is that the other thing that men react to, as I say, really, this is about being yourself and being you. And they go, oh no, everybody tells you that. Just be yourself. But then they go, but the women I'm interested don't seem to be interested in the me that is just being myself. Yeah. And then the question I usually ask them, how many people on this planet do you actually let see the real you? How many people on this planet know your dark side? Know your perversions? Know how much time you spend looking at porn or playing World of Warcraft till 2 a.m? Yeah. How many people do you really let see you? Yeah. And that you're not always trying to figure out how do I become what they want me to be, or what do I need to hide from them? Most of us
rare. Most people don't.
Most people don't. And so we say, well, they don't. But you know what? Here's what I found. Here's what I think gave me the dating success that I had. Yeah. And I promise you, I still attract. I'm married. My wife and I just celebrated our 4th year anniversary.
Oh, congratulations.
And she's a typical jealous Latina. So she's always going, why were you looking at that woman's butt? Or that woman was flirting with you. Now, here's the thing. Yeah. She's wrong about the part about me looking at the women's butts, but she is right that everywhere we go, women try to get my attention. The bend over and show you a little cleavage, walk in front of you 3 times, touch your shoulder, give you a little, jut a hip out. And women know those signals, so they read them. And she's always pointing them out, and she's right. And the majority of these women are significantly younger than me. And it's not that I'm that good looking.
Yeah. What do you think has them do that with you?
I am myself. I am who I am. I'm comfortable in my own skin. Yes. I live my life on my terms. I like me. Yeah. Now that radiates an energy, and I'm not.
It does. It does. I call them the invisible influences, right? It's like these invisible things from the inside. That's not what you say or do, but that relaxed, self-assured. You're in your body. You're grounded. There's it's like a wave that, comes even in front of you, right? That people can feel the ease, and
they do, there's energetically, it may sound a little woo at times, but needy is repulsive to all things feminine. And most single men are needy. Yeah. I got to get a pretty woman. I got to figure out how to talk to her. I got to impress her. I haven't been laid in a long time. I got to get her naked. That's all needy. And it repulses all things feminine, not just women, money, opportunity, adventure, dogs, cats, babies. It's repulsive. Yeah. Abundance, overflowing with energy, with contentment, with gratitude, with just, hey, I'm okay with myself. Yeah. That is amazingly attractive to all things feminine. Yeah. And it is something that does take some work and practice. I've been in therapy. I've been in multiple men's groups. I'm still in a men's program. Yeah. In my 60s, still working on me. And it is that energy that is attractive. Now, I add another piece to this. It still sounds a little woo-woo, but it's true. It's true in most animals. Yeah. Most emotional flock, herd, tribe, pack-based kind of animals. Yeah. That's us, that's dogs, that's lions, that's fish, it's cat. Well, cats not. Well, some cats. Dogs especially. They're pack animals. In all of these kinds of animals, anxiety is contagious. Think about this. Watch a bunch of birds on a line. Yeah. One of them gets startled. They all fly, not because they all got startled, but they have a way of communicating anxiety. And anxiety means that there's possible threat. Yep. Right. The old cowboy westerns where you got the cattle drive, and always in every cattle drive, you got to have a stampede. One cow gets spooked. Yep. Maybe the bad guys, they all go, and they're all running, going, "What's up? I don't know what the fuck's up, but run!" Right. It's time to have a stampede. What happens? Humans and all kinds of emotional based animals like this, we have mirror neurons in our brain that reflect back people's energy states, their body language, tone of voice, look on the face. Babies these are activated in babies as they stare in their mother's eyes.
Yes.
Mother looks at the baby with calm and confidence. The baby feels calm.
The baby gets soothed.
Mom is anxious and stressed. The baby gets anxious. As a therapist, I saw this all the time. I'd be working with a couple, and maybe one day they'd come in and they say, well, we couldn't find a babysitter. So they'd either have their like 3 or 4-year-old kid or a baby in a little carry-on.
Yeah.
And they'd come in with the kid, and the 3-year-old might color, the baby would be sleeping. As soon as anything got a little bit stressful between mom and dad, even if they're not yelling or raising their voices, the little kid that's been coloring on the floor just fine crawls up in their laps and starts needing attention. The baby wakes up and stops crying. Dogs even do it. I've got a 6-month pit bull, and my pup dog can read the anxiety states of my entire family.
Yeah.
Right. So that's built in. So think about this, guys. If you're like, you found this woman that you think's hot, so you're walking across, wherever you saw her at, and you're trying to think of the most clever thing you can say to get her attention. How can I impress her? And you've not had much success doing this in the past. Yep. She's pretty enough to make you anxious. You're afraid of getting rejected. You don't want to look stupid. And so you're approaching her, hoping she maybe likes you or doesn't throw a drink in your face. And you are radiating anxiety.
Yeah.
And if anxiety is contagious, and women are more sensitive to this than
we
men
are sensitive.
Yeah,
exactly. We have a spidey sense, right? That sense.
You have spidey sense. You have neuron receptors in your brain that give you spidey sense. And if you start feeling the man's anxiety, you don't just think, oh, he's anxious. No. You feel it in your entire body. Exactly. And your entire body feels bad. And you go, what's making me feel bad? And then all of a sudden some guy says, hi, I'm Robert. What's your sign?
Like, I was only feeling bad when this person walked up to me, right? Yeah. Suddenly, right? We actually feel each other's states.
We do. But then what happens is then, because the woman doesn't want to feel bad, she kind of puts up her walls or doesn't give the phone number or whatever. And then the guy walks away thinking, see, all women can see through me. They all know that I'm a loser.
Right. And I'm bad. I'm wrong. I love what you said in the book about rejection isn't personal. Or if a woman says no, it's just that, she's saying no. She's not interested in that moment, rather than I'm bad, wrong, ugly, horrible.
None of it. That's why I call it low interest. She just has low interest. Maybe she has a boyfriend. Maybe she swore off dating. Maybe she hates men. Maybe she's a lesbian. I don't know, but we don't have to figure it out. But the thing that most men then they internalize, there's something wrong with me. All women can see it. I'll never ever go. So either they quit trying, or they go try harder doing the same stuff that didn't work. Yes. Maybe they go to a pickup boot camp and they learn a bunch of, they become what I call geeks with techniques.
Yes.
I'll
lines,
do this.
Games, all of the,
I'll get her drunk enough. Then she'll, but oh God, exactly. But here's the deal. As long as we are in a state of anxiety, the woman is going to feel it, and it doesn't matter. Maybe we can get her drunk enough to overcome that state of anxiety.
We don't want to do that.
No, we don't. There's not enough. In fact, I tell men, never have sex with a drunk woman. Never, ever. Put that on the list. Never. Even if you worked hard to get her drunk, don't have sex with a drunk woman. Yeah. Just don't. Okay. But what I find is healthier is to help men start working on their own anxiety states, learn to soothe and calm themselves. And that's why I go back to choosing a woman who chooses you. If a woman's already smiled at you, if she's already touched your arm, if she's already kind of, bumped up against you a little bit in a crowd, and if she's already sending signals of, hey, talk to me, ask me my name. Yeah. There's a lot less anxiety. You don't have to get the thing started. She already started it. You just walk through the open door, hopefully challenge your self-limiting beliefs that say, oh, she wouldn't be interested in me, or it must have been a mistake, or she's smiling at somebody else. Yeah. That's all the stuff we men have to go to work on.
Yes. And women too, humans, right? I mean, all of us, that's the thing too, is that we're all doing it. I think it can look, in moments of being a man, sometimes it can look like, oh, well, if a woman is attractive or if she has it together, then like you said in the book too, I think you said this, she knows what she's doing, or
Yeah.
she doesn't have any fear or any anxiety. And what do you say to a man who says something like, well, why does it have to be about me?
Why does
Why
the
do
guy have to do it?
mm-hmm.
I just tell him because.
I mean, ultimately, we all have to do our own part, but yeah, I am still curious what, how you answer that.
The beauty of one of the reasons I love working with men is I can get out a big fucking stick and hit them upside the head. I can say, man up. I can say, listen, if you're any involvement you ever have with a woman, if it's relational, romantic, sexual, whatever, there is always going to be a double standard.
Huh.
Always.
How so?
Always. Well, think about it. Really, the guy does have to approach, but if the woman, but here's the thing, there's a double standard from both sides, right?
Yeah.
It's never equal. The woman often is the one sending a signal that says, notice me, pay attention.
Right.
But most women are not going to put up a billboard and says, talk to me, dumb shit.
Right, because they feel vulnerable about that too.
Because they're vulnerable too. And then the guy says, well, why do I have to be vulnerable? I said, because the nature of the feminine is to be more vulnerable than the nature of the masculine.
Right.
Masculine can run into brick walls. We do that thing. The feminine is sensitive. The feminine is validated externally by being approved of and noticed and loved on. The masculine is validated through action. So if there's going to be any kind of polarity between a man and a woman, usually the man is going to have to be the one of action in that relationship.
I mean, I always like to say, right, everybody's unique and there is not one template that fits all, but I did appreciate what you were saying in the book and what you're saying now, right? There tends to be a quality of leading. And, there are some men who are more feminine or softer who attract, but another
that's me.
kind of
I attract strong women.
That's fine too. But there does tend to be that polarity. Like if we are one way, we tend to attract someone who is another way. So if you are going to be, quieter, smaller, held back, then you're going to tend to attract someone who is kind of taking the lead and more powerful.
Exactly. Right. And you nailed it on the head. And a lot of the nice guys, a lot of the men I work with, I mean, I've got a strong feminine side. Every woman I've been with have been strong women, women that can get shit done.
Yes.
And I like that. My mother was a get shit done kind of person. So she was my first love object. And so I like that. But even if a woman's strong, in my experience, she wants to be able to melt into the leadership of a strong man.
I think that's very common.
The other night, I was doing
She might not even know it.
Oh, they do know it. Women do know it. Even the strong women know they want to.
I think sometimes some strong women are so conditioned and they're so, like you said, the love object or the conditioning from childhood is so much of the I need to accomplish, I need to go, and sometimes they don't. They haven't been shown. But I do think there's a tender place in most women's hearts where we just want to relax and we want to be held and we want to soften.
Just to relax. And not have to make every decision, right? And so, for example, so if you send that signal, you smile at a guy. There's something about his energy. You kind of feels good to be when you see him and you smile. You want him then to take an action based on that. Now, in a reciprocal relationship, both people can trade off being the doer and the done too. The polarity can switch back and forth. But I found in most cases, if the more default masculine person takes the lead to start and the other can melt into that leadership, can follow that, then you can have reciprocity. But agreed. I found usually if the woman takes the lead and control from the very beginning, it never changes.
I loved that too. I was thinking about that today and thinking about the clients who I've worked with and the nice guy syndrome, as you've, written about and lived through. And when there's so many women, I've worked with women too, or so many women, if a man doesn't take the lead in the beginning, then she kind of mans up in that way, even though I don't like using that, but there is a way that then we start to make more of the decisions, and then that hardness comes out, right? Then there's more of a rigidity or more of a like, I got this, instead of that soft melting surrender that many men really enjoy.
And again, as a marriage counselor, I would work with so many couples where, because the guy just, didn't want to be controlling, didn't want to be the jerk, wanted to give his woman what she wanted, always just left her in charge. And most women, because most women by nature are security seeking creatures, you're going to go take charge, right? You'll just step up and take charge. And most women are pretty competent at getting stuff done. And then what happens over time, that just becomes the standard in the relationship. The woman keeps doing, the guy keeps leading her. And then the woman, as you say, they kind of get hard and rigid and complaining and don't want to have sex anymore. But they'll come in, and I recognize this in therapy, and I'll start working with the guy about setting the tone and lead. But what I found is, for a lot of women, it's a hard habit to let go of just taking. And I have to tell women, wait, well, let's identify where he's going to work on setting the tone and leading, and you wait for it. And because, like, for example, when I took salsa lessons, it took me a while to learn how to lead. I mean, that's one of the best things I ever did, to learn how to lead. And it took a while as a white guy to learn the beat, and where I could actually lead in that. But what would happen is that once I got good at that, I'd be leading. And sometimes women would want to kind of be going at their own beat or their own steps. And what I would often do is I'd just kind of slow it down. I'd get my frame up firmer, stronger. I'd kind of pull her in a little bit close to me. I'd whisper in her ear, let me lead. And I can't tell you, every woman responded the same. Here's what all the women do.
What would happen?
They stop. They all shake their arms like this. I got to shake it off. They all go, I know. I have a hard time letting go of control. So,
I just love the example too, because it's very different than like, God, stop it. Let me lead. Right. No, that doesn't work.
Love them with an invitation. And I tell, but that just showed me that most modern women are so used to being in control.
We're so used to being in control.
You don't even
strong, independent women. I can do it myself.
Yeah. And I was going to say, I have like 200 podcasts on my website for sale. The number one best-selling podcast, and I've got them on all kinds of subjects. Number one is how to deal with strong and controlling women. That is the number one best-selling podcast.
That makes sense too for men who identify as nice guys. Yes,
exactly. For nice guys, it makes lots of sense.
Yeah.
So, we're bouncing all over the place, but I'll bring it back to that learning to be yourself.
Yeah.
And there's things I'll recommend for that. Number one, I'd say get a men's group, go to a 12-step. That's where I started. Get a therapist. And like Brene Brown would say, start being vulnerable, start revealing yourself to safe people, learn to like yourself. I love
that too. Like, as you start to reveal, and you do it in, with people who are safe and trusted, or you take small steps and you realize that people aren't shutting you down or rejecting you, which may have happened when you were young, right? It starts to become safer. And then it's like, oh, right. Then there's nothing you don't have to hold up that facade as you start engaging with people, which just gets so exhausting. I've met so many men who are just like, I feel so alone inside of here.
Yeah. And I did an interview yesterday, and the person asked me, well, what's the difference, in a relationship for the guy being vulnerable versus just like dumping, everything on his woman? I said, well, most women don't want to be a guy's emotional tampon or be their therapist, but they do want a vulnerability, because of vulnerability says, I know myself, and I like myself, and I'm comfortable with myself, and I'm not perfect, but I'm okay with me, and I like my life, and I'm living my life on my terms.
Yes.
And in my experience, that is amazingly attractive.
It is, right? I know I'm okay. I know I'm a good human being.
Yeah.
And I feel emotions, and I'm sad about this, and I have a need.
Needs are a good thing.
Yeah.
It's a good thing to not hide your needs. And that's one thing I found in working with nice guys for almost 30 years, including myself. Most of us learned at a really early age, hide my needs. Don't let anybody know I have needs. I'm bad for having needs. No, we're human for having needs. And the better job we can do, this is number one thing I tend to teach men, no matter what. start taking responsibility for getting your needs met. Because again, you got a full and overflowing bucket, that makes you inherently attractive. If it's empty and insecure and needy, and you hook up an emotional hose, or you have covert contracts, or you're manipulating people kind of they don't want to get close to that. So
what are some of the ways you talk about for men to get their needs met?
All right, you want me to give you a little mini presentation here?
Yeah.
All right, here's the way I do it. I start out, and you guys listening to this, women listening to this, do it. And I do it in three. There's 3 steps to this little exercise. And so 3 pieces of paper, and each one we're going to draw a stick figure, which is you, with a little horseshoe shaped bucket right there in the middle of the stick figure. And around the stick figure, a bunch of circles. Now, we're going to draw an arrow, a 2-ended arrow pointing from the bucket in our center to each one of those circles, right? The arrow points both directions, towards the circle and towards us.
Okay.
Those circles represent what I call cooperative reciprocal relationships, or CRRs. Every one of these circles represents a person in our life, a professional, a hobby we have, a practice we have, a group we're in. Everyone's is an individual. So I tell people, put every one of your friends in their own circle. Family members that you value, professionals, your doctor, your chiropractor, your massage therapist, your personal coach, your accountant, they all have a circle. Any groups that you're in, any practices you have, your meditation practice, reading books, exercise, they all get a circle. These things, I call them cooperative reciprocal relationships, even though some are inanimate, some are like exercise. Many represent human beings. Everybody on this page is there because they choose to be, and everybody's getting something of value out of it. So like you and I right now have a cooperative reciprocal relationship. We both choose to be here. We're both getting something value of taking the time to talk to each other. And so I think the healthiest people, somebody asked me a couple of weeks ago after doing this little assignment, they said, well, how many circles should I have on page 1? And I go, shoot for 100. They're looking like, you're in the headlights, 100. And I said, list all your friends individually. And when you start looking at it, we have more than we think we do. Right? So here's the thing. Everybody involves getting something of value. So you and your friend, when you spend time with your friend, both people get something of value. That's why the arrow goes both directions. And the more we have of these in our life, it's a conscious process, the more our bucket gets filled. Beautiful. And the more our bucket's filled, the more attractive we are. And the more life just goes better. Okay. Page 2 of this assignment is do the same diagram, but this page, it'll be a lot less circles on it. These are the cooperative reciprocal relationships we're missing that we need to add to our life. So I do this assignment a lot because I do it in workshops. So I did it about 4 years ago. And I shared with the workshop I was in, I need to change accountants. I need to find a financial advisor. I need a men's group. And right afterwards, one of the guys in my program said, I'm in a men's group with this guy named John Wineland, who's worked with David Data for 10 years. And I go, give me the information, I'm in. And I've been in John's program for 3 years now. So I identified it came. Not long after that, I did find a new accountant in a new state where I'd incorporated. And at another workshop, a guy approached me and said, Robert, this is the second workshop I've been with you, one 10 years ago. This one, you've changed my life. You made my life better. I want to help make your life better. I'm a financial advisor.
I love it.
Can I help you? And I said, boom. And so those things, they're now taken care of. They're now back on page 1 because they're part of my co-op. Okay. And we need to keep doing this like every 6 months, at least a couple times a year.
Well, and what would you say? Okay. If on page 2, a man says, well, I need to have sex and I'm not having sex.
It better be on page 2 then. We need it. We need it. It's a need and a want. It's a priority. So then we have to decide what steps do I need to take to have sex, right? And the problem is if we think, well, women are the gatekeepers of me having sex, then all of a sudden we're going to feel dependent and needy. But what if we just say, okay, I'm just going to put it on the list and make it a priority. I would hope everybody listening would want a consistent and fulfilling sex life. Why wouldn't we want that? And I hope that's on page 1. And if it's not, it better be on page 2, which brings us to page 3. Page 3 looks the same as the other 2 pages, but this is the page of the the CRRs that are not so cooperative or not so reciprocal anymore.
Uh-huh.
This might be an old buddy from college or high school that just every time you're around him, he's a jerk and drinks too much. And do you really want to be with him?
Yeah.
It might be a family member that is toxic. It might be a relationship you're in. It might be a relationship where you're having bad sex. And so the third page are the relationships we need to either renegotiate, show up differently for, or pair away to open up room for healthier CRRs back on page 1. So this is a really easy exercise to do. It's easy to even carry it out and find those things we need. It reminds us to like, I did this in a workshop, a virtual workshop a few months ago. One of the guys said, you know what? I had like a buddy on page 1 from college that I hadn't talked to in several. So I did this exercise in a workshop a few months ago, and one of the guys there said, he reported back, I have a friend on page 1 that I hadn't talked to in a few months. So he said, I reached out to him, and then he and I decided, we got in touch with some other college buddies. We're now going to we're going to talk to each other on Zoom once a month. And so you got to actually use those circles for them.
You have to do something. And that's part of the theme of your book too, right? You've got to be bold. You've got to actually take action. You can't just wish it to happen.
And I promise. So let me just kind of tell your listeners, even if that sounds like, well, I don't know if I'll do that, or it sounds no, the whole theme of what you and I have been talking about is that if we are full and overflowing and not needy, the most spiritual way I know to put it is we become love.
Yes.
We don't have to go looking for love. No, we are love.
Comes. And I know that can sound kind of strange and woo-woo, but it's true, right? It's like you become magnetic, right? If you are love, you start to bring in more love to your life. If you are ease, you start to attract who you become. And so I love the overall theme of create an amazing life for yourself, and let yourself be yourself in those ways, and let yourself be vulnerable and reveal yourself, and stop trying to impress, seduce, hide, right? There's still ways you can lead and be powerful and strong, but it doesn't have to be a facade.
No facades. Let's get rid of the facades. Let's be ourselves, warts and all. And again, keep going back to, does this person like hanging out with me just as I am? My wife and I were around a couple last weekend that the guy came to a workshop with me, and then they live here in Vallarta where I live. And so his wife came over, and my wife knew his wife. Now, my wife thinks I'm amazing. I mean, we have our issues, or like she said the other day, we only have one issue, and I go, I know, you're crazy. That's the only issue we have, and we can laugh about that. But we don't have a lot of issues, and one reason is I think she's amazing.
Yeah, and she thinks you're amazing.
She thinks I'm asombroso, which is amazing. She's Mexican, but I was listening to the woman talking in Spanish to my wife, saying, "Oh, I want my husband to be stronger. I want him to be this. I want him to change that." And later I was talking to my wife about that, and I said, I'm glad I never overhear you saying to anybody that you want me to change and be different. Now, that doesn't mean there aren't things she and I get to both keep working on together. We have that commitment. We're a team working together for the best interest of the relationship. But man, get with somebody who already thinks you're amazing. It's so much easier.
Well, I'm so grateful for you for, blending this, what feels like it's deeply spiritual, and it's also very practical, and not asking men to, man up and try to pretend to be something or learn lines.
And I use that term just being playful. I tease. I
know you used it playful, and the only way to use it playfully is playfully. Otherwise, it just feels horrible.
It's dismissive and abusive otherwise. But no, I love men because I can play with them and even tease them into being their best selves.
Yes. And I'm appreciative, because there are a lot of people out there saying, this is what you're supposed to say and this is what you're supposed to do. And it just creates such a painful dynamic. So thank you for...
Let me give one alternative to pull this together.
Great.
Instead of saying, say this, do that, I'd say, blurt whatever comes to mind and don't hold back.
Yes.
That's so much more authentic. If you have a thought in the front of your head, blurt it. Now, you may fall on your face sometimes and you may go, whoops, that probably wasn't the best thing to say. Yeah. But it's better that way. And if you have an impulse, if you're sitting there thinking, I want to touch her arm or I want to kiss her.
Right, then do it.
Do it. Touch her arm.
Be willing to navigate whatever happens in that moment, right? If she doesn't like it, then you can play with that. And if she loves it, then you can move
if she does love it.
Right? I think there's a lot of, I can't act, I'm going to hesitate because what if I get it wrong? Versus how do I, the true, I believe true confidence is that sense of like, oh, I can roll with whatever's arising here, right? I can trust myself.
And then we can do a whole nother call around non-attachment to outcome.
Oh, yes.
Of just, because that's what kills confidence. We get attached. Oh, I want her to like me. I don't want to look foolish. I want her to give me a number, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And anyway, there we go.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Shana. This was fun.
Yeah. I'm so glad you joined us for today's episode of Man Alive. I hope you enjoyed our conversation and it gave you something to consider and explore in your life. If you like what you heard, I'd be so grateful for you to subscribe and write a quick review that helps men like you find us. And again, head over to shanajamescoaching.com/quiz or text the word ALIVE, ALIVE, to 44144 to get a sense of how you can become a better lover and leader. You'll start to see how you can be both more respected and desired in your unique and genuine way. If you don't feel as confident or as excited about life or love as you'd like to be, this quiz is a really great starting point and will guide you toward a more passionate love life and a more inspiring and successful career. So again, text ALIVE, ALIVE, to 44144 or head over to shanajamescoaching.com/quiz. Join us each week for a new episode of Man Alive.